Today I'm going to be showing you a retirement chart that completely changes how my retired clients think about their spending. Over my years working with retirees, I've seen how this single chart helps overcome the deep-seated fear of spending that keeps many retirees from enjoying their hard-earned savings. That's exactly why I'm making today's video, to share this eye-opening chart that could help you feel confident spending more in retirement. When I talk to retirees, by far the most common fear is the fear of running out. Unfortunately, sometimes ignorant but often predatory parties prey on that fear. For instance, a client of mine was telling me a story that I've unfortunately heard far too many times over the years. Several years before working with my firm, they had worked with another advisor. That advisor told them that they'd saved enough, worked long enough, and in fact gave them the green light to retire. So they each respectively separated from service and began living their retired life. Now, 18 months later, Russia invades Ukraine, the Federal Reserve decides to raise rates, and the stock market slowly starts to slide. By the time October 2022 rolled around, these clients received the dreaded call, the one that no retiree wants to get, the "you need to go back to work" call. So these clients diligently went back to work. Now, needless to say, they were unhappy with their advisor and they ended that relationship. Now, fast forward a bit, and these clients were sitting with me going through a consultation in my Zoom office. And they asked me, how could our advisor have told us we had enough to retire? And then after only a 20% market correction, which, by the way, happens every 4 or 5 years or so, and now the advisor is calling us and telling us to go back to work. Now, those clients reported to me that they felt like they have enough money, but they really don't know who or what to trust anymore. And they felt like they were losing time that they couldn't get back. Time that they could have spent traveling together to see their grandkids or for projects around the house. Now, their old advisor had been using the 4% rule. But when it came to a completely normal occurrence, a 20% market correction, that advisor's plan for this couple fell apart. These clients told me that they knew they needed something more. They needed to rebuild trust in their savings, to reassure themselves that it was indeed safe to begin enjoying the money that they had worked so hard to save. Now, many of you watching this video are probably suffering from similar feelings of anxiety, worrying that you have to live far below your means even though you thought you had enough, or constantly worrying about running out despite having hustled to save all of your life. Imagining a world where you can't travel or do home improvement projects because one small mistake might cause the whole house of cards to crumble. Now, the thing is, I've discovered that the biggest factor in retirement success isn't actually how much you've saved. In fact, I found that the more someone has saved, the more they are actually plagued by the exact fears I've just outlined. Retirement success is actually about having a clear strategy for spending your savings wisely, planning that goes beyond what I can explain in one generalized YouTube video. And even though videos like this one are great for understanding retirement concepts, what's most important is learning how to apply principles to your own situation. So that's exactly why I'm offering you the chance to come to a free class this week, where I'll not only show you the complete framework for confident retirement spending, but my exact system for building your dream retirement as a whole. So just click the link below in the description to register for this free training, and let us help you plan your dream retirement in 2025. Now, back to the client's story. From the documents and data that these prospects had put together for me, I knew that they had had more than enough saved up to retire confidently. In fact, I knew that they never needed to go back to work to begin with, but I understood the dilemma that they were facing, the fear of getting it wrong, especially after what had been a trusted source had proven so unreliable. Now, in a couple of moments here, I'm going to share the chart, which is actually a series of charts that I shared with them that ultimately restored their confidence that they could retire. But more than that, these charts actually helped them realize that they could spend almost double what they had been told. Now, really quickly, before I show and explain those charts, it's important to remember two things. The first is that the incentive structure of the financial industry is at odds with what's good for retirees. It is far better for the financial services industry if you, as a retiree, fear spending, because it means your assets will continue to grow, which then generates ever-increasing fees for brokerage companies or fund companies. Now, the second thing to remember is that often the resources you see online have an incentive to create fear and anxiety. Online platforms make money off of clicks, and fear-based headlines generate far more clicks than hopeful headlines. So with that understanding, let me show you what I showed those clients that day in my Zoom office. Now, I'm going to explain this in the form of a case study. And for the purposes of the demonstration, I'm going to change any personally identifying information. These quote-unquote clients were named Steve and Amanda. Now, upon meeting me, they were ages 66 and 67. They had just about $2 million in retirement savings, and at full retirement age, Steve would receive Social Security income of $3,600 per month, and Amanda would receive $2,175 per month. Now, they told me they had two non-negotiables. The first is that they wanted to make sure they could self-fund end-of-life care, costing about $70,000 per partner for 2 years in today's dollars. The second non-negotiable is that they wanted to be able to spend about $8,500 per month or about $100,000 per year in retirement. Their previous advisor had told them that under no circumstances should they claim Social Security before age 70 in order to get the maximum benefit, and that therefore their required withdrawals, which would have been in the order of $100,000 to $110,000 per year, were too high, resulting in that fateful call recommending that they go back to work. Now, I used Income Lab's modern guardrails software to run their scenario and present them this chart that you now see here on the screen. This chart is designed to show Steve and Amanda what they can possibly spend each month and each year, given the information that I've already told you. So what does this chart on the screen actually say? Well, it says as long as Steve and Amanda were comfortable with making a possible 5% spending adjustment at some point in the future, they would be able to take withdrawals of nearly $16,000 per month from their portfolio for the next 4 years until they claim Social Security at age 70. And then they would be able to take withdrawals of nearly $100K per year after that. Now, they asked me the obvious next question. Under what circumstances would we have to make that 5% spending adjustment? Well, this chart shows that as well. There are guardrails, which are illustrated here on the screen, but now I'm going to tab over and show you this in a more friendly viewing fashion in a spreadsheet. Tell us that Steve and Amanda would only need to make a 5% spending reduction if their portfolio went down by 25%. Now, I need to point out a few things here. The first is that I toggled Steve and Amanda's plan to recommend withdrawal amounts based on them having a 20% likelihood of having to make a spending adjustment at some point in the future, which could be roughly equated to an 80% probability of success according to a Monte Carlo score. The second thing to point out is that the modern guardrails recommended withdrawal limit was about $190,000 per year. That was almost $90,000 higher than what they actually wanted to live on. So we were talking about them being able to nearly double their withdrawals so long as they were willing to make a teeny tiny withdrawal change that even with the withdrawal change would still allow them to spend 70% more than they'd actually wanted. Now see, most of us think that if our plan starts to veer off path, we just have to nuke the whole thing. And that's exactly what happened with Steve, Amanda, and their advisor. Their advisor didn't actually have a plan for them. In fact, I really honestly have no idea what he based the original green light for them to retire off of. I do, however, have a thought about what he based the back to work recommendation on, which was probably his decreasing fees. Now, at the end of the day, what we need most are contingency plans that tell us about how large a change we might need in order to bring our plan back to safety. We also need to know what that change would be and how likely we would be to have to make that change. That's exactly what this chart and what brought modern guardrails more broadly tell us. Now, obviously, Steve and Amanda were a bit uncertain. They wanted to believe the material I was showing them, but all of those years of conditioning, of being told that they had to fear spending, that they would be putting their retirement at risk if they withdrew more than the 4% rule, all of those fears were combating what I was showing them, which is totally natural and 100% expected. But Income Labs and modern guardrails actually use historic Monte Carlo data to tell us what a retiree can actually spend, as opposed to the antiquated probability of success-based systems, which just tell you a pass or fail score, but really give you no insight into what you can actually spend or what you would need to change in order to bring your retirement finances back to safety. So now that you've seen how this spending visualization transforms retirement confidence, let me show you how Steve and Amanda used this insight to reclaim their retirement lifestyle. We built Steve and Amanda a template that looks just like the one I'm showing you on the screen here. Steve and Amanda felt that stretching to withdrawing almost $200,000 per year, where they would only have withdrawn $100,000 per year, was just too big a jump. So we agreed to make a small step to begin with, and then to take successively larger steps if the smaller steps turned out to be a success. So let me explain the spreadsheet here. This shows Steve and Amanda's start of year portfolio value. It shows the guardrails recommended withdrawal amount of $190,000 for the year. Now, Steve and Amanda agreed to take withdrawals of $12,000 per month or $144,000 per year, which was still 40% more than their original plan. And we agreed that at the end of the year, in October or November, we would revisit their guardrails tracking sheet, which is what I'm showing you on the screen. And that based on how the year had gone, we would determine what withdrawal capacity they had left. We agreed that we would have a conversation and that they could choose from 4 options what to do with their remaining withdrawal capacity. So on this spreadsheet here, let's say November, we met with Steve and Amanda and they had withdrawn $132,000, which is 11 months of $12,000 withdrawals. They would have had $59,000 of remaining withdrawal capacity and 1 month of remaining withdrawals. The remaining withdrawals per month is a formula here that would have said they have $59,000 of capacity, and if they were taking $12,000 of monthly withdrawals, they would have what we call $47,000 of wiggle room, which is basically unallocated withdrawal capacity. Now, they would have 4 things to choose from to do with it. They could choose to leave it in the portfolio and roll it to the next year, and it would take the form as extra guardrail capacity. They could choose to gift that money. They could choose to donate the money, they could choose to Roth convert the money, or they could choose to spend the money on themselves. And I explained to Steve and Amanda that they didn't have to commit right now, early in the year, to such a large withdrawal increase, that they could take their time, feel out this new material, test it, and then make flexible decisions later in the year without any feelings of expectation, guilt, or judgment. Now, in the case of Steve and Amanda, when we met at the end of the year, they chose not to do anything with it and let that wiggle room roll into their next year's guardrails. It was just too big a stretch to go from thinking that it was going to be retirement breaking to spend $100,000 or withdraw $100,000 rather, to now thinking that they could withdraw $200,000 and it not be retirement breaking. Now, Steve and Amanda are not the only ones who have gone through this powerful exercise and ultimately unlocked tremendous withdrawal and spending potential that they didn't know that they had had. In fact, we use these charts in this exact exercise with every client at our practice. And what amazes me most in my practice is that these charts consistently help overcome the deep fear of running out of money. And through the years of presenting this to clients, I've watched it create a remarkable shift from anxiety about spending to genuine confidence in their retirement security. And the most rewarding moments in my practice aren't just about showing the numbers. It's really about seeing retirees who have worked so hard to save finally feel secure enough to enjoy the wealth that they worked so hard to build. And that's exactly why I want to give you a chance to come to my free class this week, where I'm going to break down exactly how you can plan your dream retirement. As I said earlier, spots are limited, so click the link below to claim your spot. It's free. Thank you as always for your time and attention, and I will see you in the next video.